Good evening. I don't know whether you can hear me. This is live. I'm hoping that the volume is going to be working. Well, my name is Stephen Marsh and I make Pinkster Gin. And I think I will tell you about how we make it and why I made it and so on. But I think first of all I just want to check that people can hear me. So if I go on to Facebook on my phone, yep, you can hear me. So I don't know how, and anything written on the screen, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to see because the camera is too far away. So I'll just check, see if people are saying they can hear me. Hello, brilliant, good, you can hear me, good, fine, we'll crack on in that case. My name is Stephen Marsh and I make Pinkster Gin. Now, you will have had a smaller version of that in your pack, and what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to taste it. I think it's important to get a drink inside one before one properly starts. So what we're going to do is pour a little bit into a glass, and the first thing I want you to do is to smell it. Now you should get quite a lot of juniper. You might you might be able to take some sweetness there as well as so it should mostly be juniper and some sweetness. Now, sweetness comes from the raspberries. We make Pinkster with fresh raspberries, and I'll explain why in a second. The raspberries give it its colour, but more importantly, they take the edge off the juniper. So what we're going to do first, what we're going to do next is taste it. Don't knock it all back because we're going to build up to a gin and tonic, and I'd like you to keep some back so that we can then make a gimlet, which is my absolute sort of go-to cocktail. So easy to make. So have a sniff, then have a sip, and swirl it around your mouth. You'll get a lot of juniper on the tongue. I make Pinkster with about 3 times as much juniper as is normally used to make gin, and but it's a very, very careful balance between the raspberries and the juniper. So you get quite a lot. You'll get a lot of juniper. You should then be able to get some raspberries. You should have a very, very soft mouth feel, and if you've got very good taste buds, and everybody's taste buds are different, you could possibly be getting some pepper notes in the tail. It has what's known in the trade as a very, very good mouth feel. So there's a little bit of heat from the alcohol, but it's only 37.5%. But there shouldn't be any burn, and you should have, drinking it neat, you should have a very, very pleasant sort of taste in your mouth, known as the mouthfeel. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add ice to it. Nothing unusual in that. So I'm going to add some ice to it. Obviously, I may be doing this with a larger glass than you are. You might even be using shot glasses or something. So that up. And now the ice, when you taste gin professionally, what you're supposed to do is do it 50-50 with water. Personally, I much prefer to do it this way. I like to taste it neat, then I like to add ice. Now the ice may sound very trite, but ice does 2 things. First of all, it reduces the temperature, secondly, and when for tasting purposes, almost more importantly, it dilutes. It's adding some water. It's opening up the gin, So don't sip it again immediately. Let the ice melt. You should, if you hold it up to the light, you should be able to see. It melting. You'll see the liquid going, changing slightly. Now I won't bore you with the science, but something happens on a molecular basis. So when you then sip it again, it's slightly different. The juniper isn't quite so upfront. It's still to the fore. It's still predominantly juniper, but you'll get a much stronger raspberry. You'll get stronger raspberry notes. Now the sweetness on the nose. There's more sweetness on the nose actually this time, and you will have picked up honey notes, etc. when you smelt it. But all of that sweetness comes to the raspberries. We don't add any additional sugar. There is less than a gram of sugar. There's actually 0.77 of a gram of sugar in a whole bottle of Pinkster, which is virtually nothing. And there are and all of that sugar is fructose coming from the raspberries. And we only make Pinkster with fresh raspberries. We only make it during the raspberry season. We start in June. We carry on until September, early October. So they're made with locally grown fresh raspberries. They're picked in the morning. They're in my tanks in the afternoon. But I'll come on to that a little bit more in more detail later. So having tasted that, now actually when you taste it this time, you should. The pepper notes in the tail are easier to discern. I hope you'll agree that's very clean and refreshing. That's what I intended. That's what I was looking to make. So now we're going to add some tonic to it. So now I've got Pinkster. I know you've got Fentimans. I'd probably go with the Fentimans Light, as I think that has less of a sort of fewer lemongrass notes. They do put extra things in their tonic Fentimans. I mean, great tonic makers. I prefer slightly cleaner tonic, but anyway. So I don't want to drown it. I'm going to put a little bit of tonic in there, and then again, if you sniff it. Get a little bit more sugar this time from the tonic, a bit more sweetness, but still very appealing raspberry notes. And then when you drink it, it's very clean and refreshing. Now that's precisely what I was looking for. I never intended to come into the drinks trade. This is entirely by accident. I had a drinking problem, and when I say I've got a drinking problem, I couldn't drink. And you go to your doctor and say you can't drink, and that's a problem. They tend not to see it quite as a problem as you do. The fifth doctor I saw identified the problem. It was a problem with yeast and sugar, and yeast and sugar hanging around in my stomach and doing what yeast and sugar do when they hang around together. And as a result, I wasn't very well. The fifth doctor said he could cure it, but he could cure it by, the cure was cutting yeast and sugar out of my diet. Now, cutting yeast and sugar out of your diet is much easier said than done. It meant a very traditional British diet: meat, 2 veg, nothing nice. And I did that for 2 years. When I finished doing that, he said, right, after 2 years, we'll start reintroducing things into your diet. And about 6 months later, he said, right, we're going to start introducing alcohol. But we're still going to avoid yeast and sugar. So he said white spirits, so gin or vodka. Now previously I'd been a wine drinker, and I'd never really drunk very much gin. My grandparents used to drink gin. I say gin, I don't remember tonic being much to the fore. And they were very keen on martinis. And I thought, having had a really bland diet, the last thing I wanted was a bland, was a bland spirit, which is what vodka is. And I thought that, and I now regard vodka as a raw ingredient, but I thought gin was absolutely fantastic. I really liked the taste of juniper. At the time, and unbelievable now, but there were only about 20 brands on the market, and this must have been back in the late noughties, mid to late noughties, and I thought that gin was fantastic, but it didn't go with food. So I set out to try and make myself a gin that I could drink with food, and I thought, how difficult can this be? The naivety of ignorance. It turned out to be very difficult. It took me 4.5 years to get to this recipe, and I was looking for something clean and refreshing that I could drink all evening. And I was commuting into London from Cambridge, so I had a couple of hours a day on the train, and I spent most of my time thinking about botanicals. I changed the recipe every week. I was doing it all in my kitchen. I started doing it cold, then started adding a bit of heat, and taught myself the arts of distilling. And eventually I realised I got it right because I hadn't changed the recipe in 3 months. My friends kept saying it's delicious, you ought to do it commercially, and in 2013 I decided to have a go at doing it commercially. And I'm really pleased that we did, because in the last 7 years I had more fun than I had in the previous 25 years. But when I tell you I was an accountant, you'll understand that in the fun stakes I was starting from a very, very low base. Now, I'm still making it exactly the same way, exactly the same recipe. Everybody in the trade, other distillers, told me that I couldn't possibly do this, and it is a very complicated gin to make. And I know lots of people have tried to copy it, but they have failed. And we've never told anybody what the other ingredients are. You can't patent a recipe. All you can do is keep it secret. So now to garnish this, and the general rule about garnishes is that, and I garnish this with raspberries and mint, but the general rule, so I'm going to put a raspberry in, but the general rule is that, so you can see that, the general rule is that a garnish that is submerged is there for aesthetics. It's there for the look of it. A garnish that's on the surface is actually there to enhance the flavour experience. So I hope you've got some mint, because we garnish it with mint as well. But before that, I want you to try the mint trick. So I want you to take a mint leaf. I want you to tear it in two, and I want you to pinch your nose and put the mint leaf in your mouth, okay? And chew it, and then unchew it, and then unpinch your nose. Now when you unpinch your nose, you'll get a tremendous taste of mint. When you're chewing it with your nose pinched, you'll barely taste any mint at all, but you suddenly get this burst of mint when you've unpinched your nose, and that is because the taste receptors for mint are actually olfactory rather than throat-based. So that is why we put the mint on the surface. But before we put it on the mint on the surface, we bruise it. Now, actually, the technical term for doing this, and you put it in the palm of your hand and do that, the technical term is actually spanking it. I couldn't believe my luck when I discovered that the technical term for bruising mint was spanking the mint, because there is nothing the British public like more than a good old-fashioned double entendre. So, and then you put it on the surface, don't submerge it, resist the urge to submerge. Then when you raise the glass to your lips, you will get an aroma of mint, and actually mint and raspberries are a traditional culinary pairing. It's absolutely delicious. And the point is I can drink that all evening. I can drink it with food. I can drink it from the beginning of the evening to the end of the evening. It's really clean and refreshing, which is what I was looking for. I've lost my train of thought now. The garnish, spanking the mint, bruising the mint, works really well, and mint and raspberries are a traditional culinary pairing. You'll find countless recipes talking about mint and raspberries. I think actually, by the same token, that that raspberries and juniper are also a natural culinary pairing. It's just that nobody really put them together until we started doing this. I think they work really, really well. It's very important with a gin. For a gin to be able to call itself a gin, you've got to be able to taste juniper. And juniper, you can taste juniper in this, but what the raspberries do is take the edge off it. They round it, they smooth the edges. Because juniper is a very, very bitter botanical. It doesn't really go with food, and I want to be able to taste it. I like the taste of it, but I want to dial it down a little. I want to taste it first, and then all the other botanicals should come in behind. If you can't taste the juniper in a gin, technically it's not really a gin. But some people get more agitated about that than I do. I'm really only interested in what does it taste like in my glass, and do I want a second glass? And that is my general rule when I'm tasting gins. My first question is, do I want a second glass? And if the answer is no, then actually, frankly, I don't often want the first glass either. So, I hope you enjoy that. Now I know that we're timed. Yep, so 18 minutes in, good. Now, when I brought Pinkster out in 2013, we were told that I couldn't make it with fresh raspberries. Flavours come out of bottles. If you want a raspberry flavour, you go to Flavour House, and so on. And because I'd been making it in that way at that point for about 7 years, and I'm fairly stubborn of nature anyway, I was insistent that I was going to make it exactly the way that I'd been making it. And frankly, I tried all sorts of different ways, alternatives, and none of them did what I wanted them to do from a flavour profile. So that works really well. When we finish making it, of course, we're left with the raspberries. And I know some of you, because I saw some comments earlier, have got boozy berries. Now these boozy berries are the raspberries we've used to make Pinkster. When we drain the tanks with the Pinkster we distill it first. We distill with 5 botanicals, and we produce. Let's see, I've got some here. So we produce something called triple juniper. Now that's going to do funny things to the light, I think. So I might close that. Yeah, that's better. So we have this triple juniper. We make this with 5 botanicals, 3 times as much juniper as normal, and then we do a secondary maceration with fresh raspberries and 2 other botanicals to make Pinkster. And when we've done that, we're then left with the raspberries, and we end up with tons and tons and tons of raspberries. I made 200,000 litres of Pinkster last year. In the 7 years we've been going, it has proved very popular. We were before lockdown in probably about 10,000 bars up and down the UK, and we sell really well all the way around the world. It's not bad for a hobby that's grown wildly out of control. Anyway, with boozy berries, we put the raspberries to the left. We put them in jars and sell them as boozy berries. They're fantastic as a pudding ingredient. So I know I saw some comments earlier that some of you have got them, who've had them in hampers and things like that. And you're probably wondering what to do with them. Well, frankly, put them in a pavlova, mix them with other fruit. They're really punchy on their own. They're 28%. I put them on ice cream. We put them in yogurt. Almost my favourite thing to do with them actually is to dip them in chocolate, dark chocolate. So melt the dark chocolate, and then using a teaspoon, roll the raspberries into the chocolate, and then put them on greaseproof paper and put them on a tray in the fridge and let them cool. Absolutely delicious. Don't throw away the liquid inside, because that is absolutely delicious. Fantastic in cocktails. I'm going to show you a cocktail using some of that in a second. A lot of these raspberries we turn into gin jam, and this absolutely delicious. Puts the tipple in your tea time, the booze in your breakfast, the liquor in your lunch, and I haven't thought of a good enough alliteration for dinner. But you use it really. Surprising number of people who ask me, well, what do I do with it? Well, frankly, you use it wherever you'd normally use jam. Put it in a Victoria sponge. But the boozy berries, fantastic in brownies. So gin jam, great in jam tarts, on your toast, in cakes, wherever you would normally use jam. The gin jam is 2.5%. It's made with the raspberries, with the boozy berries. But when we make the jam, and it is absolutely delicious, when we make the jam, we're then left with the liquid. The berries have been preserved here. I know you can see that, probably too far away. And that we're left with that liquid. And we kept being asked by bars if they could have more of that liquid. And so we decided we had quite a lot of it left. We decided we would bottle it. And we bottled it as Pinkster Royale. I have to say, bottles in my house never hang around for terribly long. It's incredibly delicious. Available via our website and a number of and lots of farm shops and delis when they reopen. In the meantime, it's available through our website. And that is intensely raspberry. It's 24% ABV. There's no added sugar. We don't add sugar to any of our Pinkster products, it's really good. It's really good in prosecco. So a dash of that in a glass of prosecco turns the prosecco pink. But the intense raspberry notes pair really well with the pear notes of prosecco. You don't need to put very much in. One bottle like that will probably do 5 or 6 bottles of prosecco. Absolutely very versatile. Last summer we were asked to be on British Airways as part of their onboard serve, and so they had our miniatures, and they had plastic versions of the miniatures you've got now, but they wanted an onboard cocktail. Now we have a gin jam cocktail, which is basically effectively making a Pinkster and tonic, and then adding a spoonful of our gin jam, a little squeeze of lemon juice, and stirring it, and you've got a fantastic gin jam cocktail. So they asked us if we could replicate that on board, and so we said we could, and we put the jam and the lemon juice into a sachet, and you just tear those, squeeze them into a gin and tonic, and stir it, and you have a delicious cocktail. So on the back of that, we then developed a winter version, which has allspice and orange zest in it as well. But this is the summer version. Also works really well as a mocktail if you just want to have it with tonic. If you're unfortunate enough not to be able to drink for the evening, but you still want a tasty drink, then just add one of these to a glass full of tonic, and you've got, or even mineral water actually. Absolutely delicious, really easy and delicious mocktail. And you can garnish it exactly as you would otherwise as a Pinkster and tonic otherwise. So right then, I think we're 25 minutes. Okay, so quickly onto the gimlet. I'm a real fan. I'm a big fan of simple, easy to make cocktails. The fewer the ingredients, the better. My absolute favourite is a gimlet. So what we're going to do is I got a wine glass. I actually have an empty bottle of Pinkster. I'm going to show you how to make this. And I've got a funnel here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in 2 parts. So that's 100. I'm going to put 100 ml of Pinkster. And the reason I'm doing it in an empty Pinkster bottle is that it's then really simple to shake it and then pour from it. And you can pre-batch this. We actually sell it, we're now starting to sell it by the pre-batch, by the bottle. I'm actually going to add half a measure, so 25 ml of the Pinkster Royale. And I've got some sugar syrup. All these are, and the Royale is obviously not in everybody's cupboard, but anybody who likes doing cocktails will have sugar syrup. They'll either make it themselves or buy it. I'm going to put 1 part, i.e. 50 ml of sugar syrup, and I've got some pure pour lime here. You can use, you can squeeze your own lime equally well, and I'm going to put 1 part of lime, and in fact I'm going to just do an extra little dash of lime because I like to do slightly more lime juice than sugar syrup. And then, having done that, I'm going to put the cork back in the bottle and give it a shake. So really important to shake it, but then that is nice and stirred, shaken, and I'm going to then fill a wine glass with some ice, and then I'm just going to pour some of that, not all of it, because I know that my wife will want one as well. And then I'm going to garnish that with a wedge of lime. Really, very simple. You can make it you can make a lot of it in advance. So if you want to serve it for a party, or there's nothing more boring than having to making cocktails. You spend all evening making cocktails for people and never get a chance to talk to anybody. But you can pre-batch this. Last as long as the lime juice will last. I think it's absolutely delicious. You can also add mineral water to it if you want to make it slightly weaker. As it is, that probably comes out to about sort of 17 to 19%, depending upon how much of the lime juice and sugar syrup you put in. Absolutely delicious, really refreshing, a very easy cocktail to make, and I hope you like it. If you get a chance to make one and try it. Now everything we make is available for sale on our website. There is a 10% discount until the end of the bank holiday. So our website is www.pinkstergin.com, and the shop is on there. We also make lots of fruit gin liqueurs and things like that. But you've seen the Pinkster range, and the Pinkster comes in several sizes, ranging from a 3-litre bag in box down to a miniature. Jam comes in 2 sizes as well, and if you put in the code VG10 before midnight on Monday the 25th, then you'll get a 10% discount on anything you buy. So I hope that was interesting. It's very strange doing something like this without an audience in front of you, talking to my iPad. I can see lots of comments coming up on the screen, but with my eyesight, there's not a cat's hope in hell of me reading them from this distance. I suppose I could have a quick look on my phone if anybody has any questions, but I think I've now had my allotted half hour. Let's see if I'm going to be able to find it on there. No, I'm not. So if I come forward, I might just have a look and see whether any. Okay, so people are asking about the Bond poster. Yeah, not nearly as good in my opinion. And if I tilt this to the Blues Brothers, which is obviously on a mission from God, and I know the questions about drinks cabinet. I am at home. This is my office, home office, and games room, and this is my drinks cabinet. And as you can imagine, my sons like having parties here. They're all over 18. and we're all here for lockdown. And I have to say, I think we will. I'll have to make quite a few more of these this evening because I know that they're very popular. Anyway, thank you very much for having me. I hope that's been interesting. Any questions? Do put comments on Facebook on Facebook, and I will try and answer them later. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand over to the next speaker. Thank you very much for listening. Now I've got to figure out how to stop it being live.